This is CBC Here and Now.
Tonight, the St. John's Airport cancels flights starting this evening because there are not enough firefighters.
It's the latest development after most firefighters went on medical leave this week, citing a toxic workplace.
Canada Post says there may be delays, but this time you can't blame Dieppe. Coming up on Here and Now.
Well, like we've been seeing for the last couple of weeks, really, the warm up today and then the cool down as we head through the day tomorrow. I'll tell you how long that's going to stick around.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, in just 2 hours from now, most flights at the province's busiest airport will be canceled.
It's due to that staffing shortage we told you about last night.
Now, this leaves a lot of questions for travelers right now, and unfortunately, not a lot of answers. For a second day, St. John's Airport refused to do an interview and answer questions. In a short statement issued late this afternoon, it said there are not enough firefighters at the airport to continue with normal commercial operations. So what does this mean? Well, starting at 8 o'clock tonight, the only flights in and out of St. John's Airport will be cargo flights, medevacs, and small aircraft with 19 seats or less. Now, this is all because most fire hall employees are on sick leave. The union describes the workplace as toxic and says members have been harassed and bullied for flagging health and safety concerns. But the union says this is not the outcome it wanted.
It's very unfortunate that it has come to this. It's unfortunate that our members' health and safety got ignored and their concerns got pushed away to the point that it affected their psychological health and they had to seek help. The union takes this very serious. We're very proud of the work our members do at the airport, whether it's firefighting or snow clearing or whatever work they do. And we want them to have safe working conditions.
Now, the Minister of Labour and MP for St. John South Mount Pearl, Seamus O'Regan, is weighing in a tweet this afternoon. He called the current situation at the airport unsustainable, saying senior officials from his department are now involved. He says the immediate goal is to minimize disruption and get the airport back up and running safely. Long term, the goal is to resolve the dispute between the firefighters and the airport authority.
Canceled altogether, and for how long? The airport will only say it sincerely apologizes to anyone experiencing hardships as a result of this situation and that it's working around the clock to resolve the issue. Meanwhile, PAL Airlines tells CBC it's ready to work with any affected passengers to make other arrangements to accommodate or rebook their travel.
Shifting to COVID news now, 2 more people in this province have died as a result of COVID-19. They're both men in the eastern region over the age of 70. There have now been 28 people who've died because of COVID-19 during the pandemic. Already, January is the deadliest month of this pandemic. There are 14 people in hospital, down 1 from yesterday, with 3 of those in the ICU. The province announced 295 cases, but almost 2,500 recoveries, leaving just over 3,000 known active cases. Personal care homes are warning that COVID has brought them to the breaking point. The owner of one in Springdale says almost half of the staff, including himself, have tested positive. So have 20 of the residents. The home is so short-staffed they have to use a worker who is supposed to be isolating. Otherwise, residents would be left without care.
I was presented with a very serious challenge of being short one staff for our overnight shift and at risk of not being able to have the proper coverage in the building should anything happen, any emergency, any medical emergency, those types of things. We made the call. My wife, actually, who's non-symptomatic right now, but has not finished her 7-day isolation, ended up coming in and working the overnight shift last night because there was no resources available. And calls to Central Health and our regulation authority didn't produce any results.
Now, Shane Penny says the province needs to bring in help, whether it's the Red Cross, the military, or other federal resources to help. He says it's having an impact on the residents.
I'm seeing a varied state of affairs. Some residents, their mental health and being locked away in a room, just like any one of us would feel if we were in a room for days and weeks on end, it's challenging. And then to put that into context of not receiving or delayed receiving of meals or care that you should be receiving and things like that, it's hard on them. It's very hard on them. And I've had to profusely apologize and will continue to do so to my residents and my families, the residents' families, for that situation.
Now, what about other homes? Well, the union representing some healthcare workers says this is not an isolated situation. This is something that's being felt all across the province.
I think the last ways we talked about trying to identify facilities that add positive cases, we're almost reverse now, trying to identify facilities where there are no cases. So that's a complete opposite. What we're seeing, this virus is much more transmissible. And it's really difficult on families. Like I've had family members reach out, really concerned about not being able to see their loved ones, but understanding that trying to protect their loved ones.
Now, at a briefing yesterday, the health minister said 80 facilities in just Eastern Health were dealing with positive cases.
Well, Canada Post is trying to keep the mail moving, but Omicron and the weather are making that tough. It means that as winter grinds on and case numbers continue to grow, mail delays are a real possibility. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
The local leader of the union that represents workers here is one of the people driving a truck like this. We caught up with him when he returned to get more mail. He's keeping it moving as Omicron spreads.
We have identified 9 postal workers in the St. John's metro area that have been tested positive. And of course, what comes with that is other people following public health and isolating until they get a test.
He says COVID and the usual winter weather have conspired to cause delays. But Dyer underscored that postal workers are keeping letters and parcels moving.
Canada Post has relief letter carriers, on-call relief workers for those that deliver to your door. And they have a relief force for the people that process the mail, and they're utilizing an awful lot of temporary workers.
Dyer says there are people working inside this Canada Post facility who aren't getting the recognition they deserve.
We have actually what we call COVID cleaners. These are the real rock stars and heroes that's keeping the mail processed here at 98 Kenmount Road.
Canada Post responded to a CBC News request for an interview with a statement. It said the corporation is implementing contingency plans as Omicron continues to have an impact on staffing across the country. At the start of the pandemic, this facility was shut down for days. Dyer is hopeful that over the last 2 years, Canada Post has learned how to keep that from happening again. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, certainly a stormy day out there today, pretty much across the board, but particularly for the southwest where we had storm surge warnings a little bit earlier today and had a couple of pictures shared with me. I want to share those with you today as well. This is in La Poile. Ray Vauche shared this shot with us, so you could see that water level fairly high there. And then Karen Banfield, this is Sandbanks. Definitely not very often do you see the waves like that there. So certainly some stormy conditions. Those storm surge warnings have ended for the south coast, but that heavy rain is starting to move a little bit further east. Here are those numbers from earlier today. Earlier this afternoon, Wreck House picked up about 71 millimeters of rain, 19 millimeters in Winterland. But like I said, some of that rain, the heaviest rain now occurring over the Avalon, and will continue to do so over the next couple of hours. Certainly seeing sideways rain. These are the top gusts so far today. Right now, those winds topping out at 115 kilometers per hour for Bonavista. And as we head through the night tonight, eventually those winds will ease, but it also comes with some cooler temperatures. I'll have the full forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Debate over a proposed energy plant is reigniting in Lewisport. Synergy World Power wants to take waste from around the world and turn it into synthetic fuel. And now plans are on the minister's desk for approval. Here Now's Garrett Berry has our story.
The process is called gasification. You heat up plastic so much it starts to break down and turn into a fuel. Synergy World Power says if their plant is built, Lewisport will become a global leader.
You know, maybe we're at a point in time in our history where there is a clean technology that can be used to deal with some of that plastic, and maybe we'll be on the front steps of that.
But the project is getting a cool reception, at least among some, who are now planning protests at Town Hall.
Tourism is one thing that we are expanding upon, and Notre Dame Bay is known for its beautiful coastal waters and islands. I think it would be detrimental totally.
The plant would have a big footprint. The design calls for a highway overpass, a tank farm, and a company-owned dock where the vessels with foreign waste would unload.
The company says boats like this would make about 3 stops a month in Lewisport, bringing 750,000 tons of overseas waste each year: wood, plastic, cardboard, sorted by third parties and wrapped like these plastic bundles. The company calls it solid recovered fuel and says it can turn one country's trash into Lewisport's treasure, promising new, well-paid jobs, economic diversification, increased tax revenue, and enhanced local production of agriculture products. But critics say the benefit of 100 to 200 jobs doesn't outweigh the risk of this industrial development.
You're opening up the doors to the world's garbage by allowing this one little bit. Everybody else is going to be like, oh, well, let's send our garbage to Newfoundland. It's going to turn us into a huge dump, and it's bad enough here as it is.
The company has declined an interview with CBC. In its 180-page environmental assessment application, it promises that no hazardous waste will be imported, and waste that can't be used will be sent back or to Norris Arms landfill. The assessment is now with the province's environment minister, and town council says it's relying on the provincial government for direction.
We see jobs and we see development, we see growth, which is every community strive, I guess, to make their community better. And a part of that is having jobs available for young people. But again, it can only be through projects that are environmentally sustainable. So if this project is found to be unsustainable and there's concerns raised and the province rejects it, well, we'll move on to something different.
The minister's decision is due in about a month. Government could choose to send the proposal back for further study. Garrett Berry, CBC News, Lewisport.
Parents, students, teachers, and staff are all waiting for word on when schools will officially reopen. A decision was expected to be announced tomorrow, but has since been pushed to Thursday. If all goes to plan, classes will return next week. Rapid tests will be part of that process. Students and teachers have to take 2 tests before heading back. Here Now's Katie Breen shows you what to do, and just watch. The swab doesn't have to go up as far as you may think.
You've got a test coming up, but don't panic. This is how you take a rapid test. You're going to get a set of instructions. You'll want to read them before you start. For each test, you'll need a swab, a test strip, a test tube, and something to keep your test tube from falling over. You could try an egg cup or any small container. First, either wash or sanitize your hands. Then, open the swab without touching the foam tip. Now comes the nose part. Health officials say to insert the swab 2 centimeters. Unless you're a small child, then you just need to fit the foam inside. You swab each side at least 5 times, making sure you're hitting the wall of your nostrils. Then you do the exact same thing on the other side. It's not so bad. That should take you at least 15 seconds. Now, take the top off your tube and immediately place the swab inside. The tip needs to touch the bottom. Stir it around 3 or 4 times. Then put the tube somewhere it won't fall over and leave it for at least a minute. After a minute, take out the swab. Make sure you press it against the side of the tube to squeeze out as much liquid as possible. Don't touch the tip, just throw out the whole swab. This is the test strip. You'll see an arrow pointing to the slit you're supposed to use to open it. Be really careful when you open it to only touch the top of the strip so you don't accidentally contaminate it with your hands. Now, with the arrows on the strip pointing down, put the strip in the tube and leave it there. Set it aside and don't touch or move it for 10 minutes. It's a good idea to start a timer. It's important not to let your test sit for more than 10 minutes. When you're done, just take the strip and lay it on a flat surface. You'll have 5 minutes to read your results. One blue control line like this means it's a negative test. If there's a second line anywhere from bright red to faded pink, that's positive. And if your test doesn't look like any of these, it's invalid and you need to try again. If your results come back positive, you have to self-isolate right away. You don't have to book a PCR test, but if you're a student, you can't go back to class in person. Students have to take 2 rapid tests, one 72 hours in advance and a second on the morning you head back. Test negative twice, and you've got the clear to head back to class.
Oh,
Caroline, I think that's probably one test that a lot of people are hoping they fail over the next couple of days.
Yeah, for sure. That was really handy video. Nice work, Katie Breen.
Well, for families stuck at home, even a few days can feel like eternity. To help fill those hours with something fun and educational, check out Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, it developed a ton of virtual learning resources that get children working with their hands more than their screens. Here now, Zach Gowdy tried it out.
At Skills Canada, we're all about continuing to promote learning even in this virtual landscape. Teachers, parents, kids are struggling. I mean, virtual is hard for everybody, but that's really what we're trying to help here with Skills Canada. Hi, my name is Ali Ragg, and I'm Youth Programs Coordinator here with Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. Before this pandemic started, Skills Canada, here we were all about promoting skills, trades, and technologies to youth in classrooms across the province. When the pandemic happened, we couldn't do that anymore, of course. We've done our best to take all of our programming and convert it to a completely virtual landscape. So what we've done is we've invested in these takeout try-a-trade kits, is what we call them. So essentially, these kits allow students to build these small little hands-on projects that get them thinking about skills, trades, and technologies that might be involved, as well as their skills for success.
Oh yeah!
So some kits we've done these hydraulic kits, these electrical kits, a super cool bridge that can lift up and down, or even a car kit like you tried yourself, Zach. Oh, yeah, he's gonna show it off. Yeah, these kits are wicked. So, I mean, you built a completely functional moving car all by yourself.
Yes, my kids really enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
Hello, Mini Makers, and welcome back to another episode of Makers Club, where today's project is super fun.
Well, if you check out any of our social media pages, they are chock full with resources for students. So our Makers Club series is actually a really nice one for parents and students to try out together. So essentially, it's this series of videos all across our social media where each week I try out a new trade and I teach kids a quick activity that goes along with it. So all of these activities are super hands-on, super fun, and kids get to learn about the skills trades at the same time.
3, 2, 1. No! Yeah!
Through giving these interactive kits and video projects that are pulling you away from the screen, these different things are hopefully going to fill kids with a bit more hands-on learning versus sitting and watching a computer. Though some aspects of it have to be online due to the nature of the way we're in right now, we try to really get kids away from the computer and use their hands-on skills.
Just goes around and around because eventually this boom is going to come to an end in a couple of years.
A community flourishes and grows so quickly that the kind of social infrastructure we need to sustain that community doesn't keep up with it.
Next, the struggle to find housing in Western Labrador, examining the boom bust cycle, driving up the cost.
If you're not a fan of the wind, really the only relief we're going to see is through the night tonight. Winds pick back up tomorrow for parts of the province. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up.
Ash is back with a look at the weather. I just had a peek outside the window and my jaw dropped at all of the rain that's coming down now and all of the wind. The day really took a turn.
Yeah, it was pretty nice earlier today. I mean, it was a little bit windy, but until that rain, which just moved in about a half hour ago now, that is going to continue, and very much sideways rain out there. Let's take a look at what's happening out there as far as that satellite and radar goes. There it is. Most of eastern Newfoundland is seeing the heaviest rain. It's since tapered off for the most part for the west coast. But if we zoom in again, you can see some of the heavier rain down along southern Newfoundland. That is going to continue, southern Avalon rather, and that is going to continue to track further north as we head through the night tonight. Now, everything that did fall today did fall as rain, and that's because temperatures were well up above 0. 8 degrees is the hot spot for the island in Deer Lake. Temperatures even across Labrador, Cartwright, Happy Valley, Goose Bay in the single digits, and then Hopedale, Makkovik hovering around the 0 degree mark. But still on that cold side, although warmer than it has been, but -9 for Lab City today. But that temperature dropped about 10 degrees and those wind chill values feeling more like -31 right now. And as we head through the night tonight, we're going to see those wind chill values dip even more as that cold air starts to track a little bit further east. But your wind chill values in Lab West looking at the -42 to even close to -46. By the time tomorrow morning rolls around, and we're looking at those wind chill values across the island as well, dipping fairly sharply with those wind chill values about -10 to -13 by the time you're planning to head out the door tomorrow morning. No surprise though that we have an extreme cold warning in effect for Lab West, Churchill Falls, and the Valley, and you're going to see that on and off now, pretty much right through to Saturday as we see some of that cold air locked in place for a little while. And then a blowing snow advisory from Makkovik through to Nain, where we will see some, that will be through the day tomorrow. All that freshly fallen snow will blow around. We see those winds pretty gusty through the afternoon. And then along the strait there on the Labrador side, you're under a rainfall warning as well as a snowfall warning. It is falling right now as rain along the coast. Further inland, you're seeing that snow, and that will generally taper off as we head through the overnight tonight. But those wind warnings still very much in place from the Conagra Peninsula all the way along to the Avalon and up through Bonavista North, as well as a rainfall warning for the Conagra Peninsula and southern Avalon. So that rain will continue, like I said, for the next couple of hours along with these windy conditions. We should see that end overnight. The winds will eventually die down a little bit, down to about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Most of the Avalon should stay near or just above 0 through the night, but the rest of the island will drop down below 0. And like I said, very cold for Lab City tonight, going down to about -31 as your overnight low. So Future Tracker just going to time that out. There's the heaviest rain there working its way off. Now we're still looking at the chance of a few showers, but the rain will end. And as that cold air moves in and continues to track further east, we're going to see the potential to see some snow. Certainly in the early morning hours for the east, and then potentially even the Avalon as well. And then we start to get into a snow squall potential tomorrow afternoon. Models are picking up fairly well on that on the west coast, particularly the southwest. Burin, southern Avalon, you could see a few squalls develop as well. And then there's the chance of some flurries tomorrow for coastal areas of Labrador, hence that blowing snow advisory. And as we head through to the evening hours, some of that should taper off, but then we get into the overnight and the chance of some more light snow, again with a warm up as we get into Thursday morning. So as far as that snowfall amounts go, you're looking at about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow for the west coast as we get through Wednesday morning, and then maybe a little bit more in some of the higher elevations thanks to some of those squalls. This will be if you see persistent squalls through the day. And then as far as rainfall amounts, taking us to Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, picking up another 5, maybe 10 millimeters of rain. Now, as far as the temperatures go tomorrow, they'll be much colder in the west into the minus single digits with those winds about 30 to 60 kilometers per hour right across the board. So it will be breezy. And then temperatures for the island, or for the Avalon rather, hovering between 0 and maybe 1 degree. And you're still looking at the chance of a few flurries as well as some sunshine. Temperatures will be cooler for Labrador again tomorrow. Mary's Harbour in the minus single digits, but as you head towards Happy Valley, Goose Bay minus 20, and Lab City as well, you're hovering around minus 23. So that's a look at your forecast for Wednesday. We'll look ahead when I come back.
It's been a tough year to find a place to live in Western Labrador. Low vacancy and increasing cost for the places that are available. The mining industry in Western Labrador is booming at the moment, and so is the demand for minerals. Along with that goes the demand for more workers, and that puts pressure on the housing and rental market. Here now's Rafsan Farouk Jugol reports.
Nancy Bonnell-Stoyles finally has her own home, but getting there wasn't easy. She's lived in Labrador City for over a decade and was twice forced out of her apartment because of skyrocketing rents.
It goes in a cycle. It just goes around and around because eventually this boom is going to come to an end in a couple of years, and then it's going to go back to low-income housing. All the contractors are going to leave again.
Now, Nancy got lucky when the last boom cycle ended and she was finally able to buy a house. But low-wage workers like Jay Torval, who are working the service sector right now, are not that lucky.
Prices are rising for everything, for food, for rent, for gas, for just living. Since it keeps rising, the minimum wage doesn't seem to meet that. So my hope would be to either have those prices reduce or have minimum wage get raised.
So boom and bust cycles are something that are a feature of natural resource economies because of, say, a major development, whether it's construction or a natural resource discovery or some other kind of new investment. There's a flood of capital investment into a territory. Often a lot of jobs are created.
On certain years, a lot of workers get flown into the town to work in the mines, which creates this boom cycle leading to the rental markets going up. And when this boom cycle ends, all of these workers leave the town, which leaves all of these houses empty, leading to the rental markets going down.
So it's almost like a community flourishes and grows so quickly that the kind of social infrastructure we need to sustain that community doesn't keep up with it.
The mines in Labrador West are going through a boom right now, and that social infrastructure which is not keeping up is housing. In another mining town named Vermont on the Quebec side near Labrador City and Wabush, the housing situation is also very similar.
It's more than a shortage of housing, it's a crisis. So the same thing in Vermont as in Labrador City, Wabush. It's really because of the mining boom. The price went up.
Now, the deputy mayor of Labrador City has indicated that this is a problem that the town is looking into.
Us as a municipality, we donated a piece of land to the Pioneers Living Association, and they're doing their thing on their end, and we're supporting where we can. So, in the big turn of things, that's going to actually probably get about 40 houses.
The town was not able to commit to a timeline on when these senior homes would be completed, but could there be other solutions on top of these 40 units?
I understand something like rent control would be under provincial jurisdiction. Could that play a role potentially?
Yeah, actually, in 2014-15, there was a study done called Plan Big, and there was some recommendations and stuff in it that did talk about, rent control, which would help alleviate a lot of the landlords in the region.
The MHA went on to emphasize the need of infrastructure development on top of rent control. Earlier this year, the provincial government has said that rent control would not be a desirable policy option for Labrador West because it would provide less incentive for investors to build new rentals or invest in existing ones. In a statement to the CBC, they said, the disadvantages of increased administrative burden and potential unintended consequences outweigh the potential benefits. Now, Nancy Bonnell-Stoyles was able to buy a house in 2018 when the last boom cycle ended. But for workers like Jay Torval, as the mines head into another unprecedented boom, a permanent solution, at least for this winter, is still yet to be found. Rafsan Farouk Jugol, CBC Labrador.
Well, really, for us, the first priority is that testing negative, because if we don't do that, we can't get into the Olympics.
Team Gushue is isolating in Vancouver in the lead up to the Beijing Olympics. We catch up with Brad Gushue to hear how they're preparing for the games, and we find out about a new video series highlighting the team's decades-long career. Well, the clock is ticking down for the Olympics, and Newfoundland and Labrador's own Brad Gushue and his teammates are now in Vancouver isolating before leaving for Beijing in February. Brad Gushue joins me now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Last time we spoke, it was fresh off your win that secured the Olympic spot. And with all of the restrictions in place now, can you talk about the process you now have to go through leading up to the Games?
Yeah, it's been a challenge, really. We've changed our plan leading up to the Olympics a number of times, and it eventually just got to the point where we decided, how do we get out there or give ourselves the best chance of getting out there without testing positive? And we left it to the doctors of the Olympic Committee in Curling Canada, and they came back to us with the plan, which meant coming out here to Vancouver for 3 weeks before we head over to Beijing, and essentially isolating in a house and just practicing while we're out here. So that's what we decided to do. It's going to mean a long time together with all of us, but it's going to allow us to be as prepared as we can from a technical and curling perspective, and also give us the best chance of testing negative when we head over to Beijing.
Yeah, so I guess part of your preparation is to avoid the virus, but what kind of training are you doing to prepare for the game itself?
Yeah, well, really for us, the first priority is that testing negative, because if we don't do that, we can't get into the Olympics. But while we're here, we're going to be able to do this similar sort of stuff that we do during any of our training camps or any of our practices. So we have all 8 people here, our 4-person team plus our support team. So we're able to go through a lot of different drills and technical things. And as we get later and closer to the Olympics, we'll go through some game situations and game scenarios. So we should be ready from a technical perspective, and we're quite happy with that. And it's just a long time away from home. That's the biggest challenge.
How different is this experience so far compared to your last experience going to the Olympics in 2006? I'm sure there's a long laundry list, but how would you sum it up?
Yeah, it is night and day, to be quite honest. I look back 16 years ago, and it felt like we were running around everywhere, attending functions and playing events and meeting people and doing all kinds of crazy things where, we never thought we'd be doing. And that kind of left us in a situation where we felt overwhelmed. We felt very tired going into the Olympics. I think this time around, it's very slow, very slow. And being here in the house, it's very quiet and very kind of chill. But for us, there is a level of anxiety now where every time we do a COVID test, you just have your fingers crossed that it comes back negative. And we are taking every precaution, but there's nothing that's foolproof or nothing that's 100%. And we have to kind of park that anxiety as much as possible and still try and prepare for getting over to Beijing.
I know you probably don't want to think about it, but what would happen if you tested positive?
Yeah, there's a number of scenarios that could happen. There is still the possibility that we could get over there. If we do test, we have a test now coming up on Wednesday. If we do test positive there still is an outside chance that we could get over if we're able to test negative then 72 and 96 hours before heading over. If you do test positive on one of those tests, then there's a 99.9% chance that you won't be able to attend. So it's kind of like your key into the door. You have to have that negative test, and they're trying to keep everybody safe. So I understand that. It's just it's a tough situation for us as athletes to be so focused on making sure we test negative.
Yeah, being careful about every interaction. And how challenging is it to have to isolate away from your family right now? Because you're a dad compared to last time. You weren't a dad, but now you have 2 children. And what's it like for you having to isolate in a different province away from them?
Yeah, that's the hardest part. We're going to be away for probably 7 weeks. And, I'm going to miss my family, miss my girls, miss my wife. That's the toughest part for us, to be honest. But to be truthful, we kind of felt like we were a bit of a burden over the last couple of weeks before we left, because we had to really require our families to self-isolate and make sure that they were safe. And if the kids were going back to school, we were going to have to keep them out just to make sure that, nothing came to us. So, I think we were going to really disrupt their lives, and us getting out here allows them to, allows my kids to still see their grandparents and allows them to still go to, the occasional activity once that's allowed. So it's nice for us to get away so they can have some sense of normalcy, but we're certainly going to miss them, and there's going to be a lot of FaceTimes with them over the next few weeks.
I bet. And the team sponsor put together a series of videos about the team, kind of a behind the scenes sort of look. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Kubota Canada, who's been our main sponsor over the last 4 years, put together a documentary or a docu-series about us and gives everybody a behind the scenes look at what our lives are like, what our team is like, and how we came together, and how we came through and won the Brier in 2017. It even leads into the trials and what happened in post trials, which is still an ongoing story. So they've done a great job. We are super excited about it. We encourage everybody to go out and have a look, and you can see that either through our Facebook page or through Kubota or their YouTube page as well. So we have all the links shared on our social media, so you could easily find it. But we've been working on this for over a year, and very excited that it's coming out, and the feedback's been really good so far.
And it's a story that's well over 16 years old now. So much has happened, so much drama during the course of your career.
Yeah, and we touch on a lot of those things. There's some footage back when we won the juniors in 2001, and a lot of, we talked to a lot of our coaches that have been with us throughout our career. Toby McDonald, obviously, Jeff Thomas, who's here now, and Aaron McGowan, our sports psychologist, is in there as well. So there's a lot of I guess background knowledge of our team, and I think it's really nice that it's coming out right now with us heading over to the Olympics, because people can get a better perspective of what we've had to go through over the course of our career.
Best of luck to you. I hope we'll get a chance to connect with you again while you're over in Beijing. Stay safe, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Here you go. Well, as we head to break, we'd like to share with you an act of kindness from Con River. Dan Jador shot this video of his daughter releasing a dovekie, also known as a bullbird, back into the wild. The little bird was being attacked by crows, they say, and hid under their vehicle. So there's Danielle bringing it back to the water. So well done, and thanks for sharing.
And while we're on the topic of bird rescues, do you remember this one? This was from Northwest River. Now, we shared some photos of Billy Gautier's owl rescue back in November, but check out this video of this little guy here. He was busy being saved from a murder of crows and hung out on Gautier's kayak, taking a little bit of a ride back there. Thanks to Kara for sharing this amazing video.
Well, during her visit to Kiev, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says Canada stands shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. The Eastern European nation is currently dealing with the threat of a possible Russian invasion.
There is only one viable path. Russia needs to de-escalate and needs to engage in meaningful dialogue.
Russia has denied any plans to invade, but has positioned about 100,000 troops near its border with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine has asked its allies for more military assistance. Joly says her visit is meant to show Canada's unwavering solidarity to the country during the ongoing crisis. Her next stop is France before she heads to Brussels to meet with European Union and NATO leaders.
It's been an especially challenging road to motherhood for one Regina woman. She and her husband have already shared their heartache and joy with the CBC back in the fall. And as Bonnie Allen reports, their loved ones have once again stepped up to support them.
What a difference a year has made for Courtney Sestonic. She's now a proud mother to baby John with another baby on the way, growing inside a surrogate, her sister-in-law Tara Fortier.
I was born with Müllerian agenesis, which means complete absence of my uterus. So I still have my ovaries, I still make eggs, I still have all of that. I can make the babies, I just can't carry them.
Courtney and her husband Chris found a surrogate in 2020, but sadly, their daughter Josie was stillborn halfway through the pregnancy.
A year ago, at this point, I was at my darkest.
But friends and family rallied around the couple.
I don't know if that's like a bum or a limb though.
We first connected with them in October. Courtney's friend Carissa Jarsma stepped up as a surrogate. She had received help to make her own family, adopting a son and using another couple's embryo to birth a second son.
Paying that forward and giving a gift to someone else, it feels like a natural progression.
When Carissa delivered baby John for his parents in late October, they were overjoyed, but also a bit overwhelmed. What they didn't tell us then was that Chris's sister had also volunteered to be a surrogate.
As soon as we learned that Josie had passed, I just sat down and started crying and talking with my husband and just like, I think I need to do this.
Tara and her husband had their two children quite easily and wanted to help.
Although this is one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life, it's also one of the most rewarding. I mean, we never really asked anybody, because how do you ask someone to carry a baby for you? It's the biggest ask.
Holy moly.
Like, they're giving you the biggest gift of your life.
They're sharing their story to erase any stigma and to inspire others.
That would be such a huge win for me, because there's so many people that are still hiding in the shadows and very ashamed of their diagnosis and ashamed of the way that they need to make a family.
And ultimately, they want to celebrate how people they love helped them to make a family. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan.
When it comes to winter projects, minus 45 might not sound like ideal working conditions, but a woman in Saskatoon says the colder weather, the better.
Yes, Laura Faust is building a wall, but it's not to keep anybody out. She actually hopes her cold creation will help bring her community together.
I am building an ice wall, and which is morphing into a fort. So it started off with the idea of just building a few bricks, making a small wall in front of my house to bring some joy to the neighborhood. Well, I started it, I think, on the coldest day right after Christmas. So it was about minus 45 when I started making the bricks, and started laying the first bricks on the 31st of December, and so I'm still working on it. It did take longer than I thought because originally it was just going to be a small project, but as I started working on it and was enjoying it and more ideas were coming, and so it is probably going to be an ongoing project. I imagine working on it for the rest of the winter. I've learned that it is much easier to build when it's minus 40 than when it's minus 5, that things freeze much quicker. So I went to Dollarama and I got a whole bunch of mini loaf tins, 60 of them. I'd come out first thing in the morning with jugs of colored water and pour them into the loaf tins, let them freeze. When it was minus 40, they were frozen in 3 hours, so I could do mass production. The most fun was talking to the people as they were walking by or stopping by. I've had more contact with people in the last week and a half than I think I have the last 2 years, so it's just been really fun to have people stop and talk about the wall and why I was doing it and asking me questions about how they could do it for themselves.
This weather update is brought to you by the NL 511 app. Know before you go. Check road conditions, highway cameras, and the Provincial Plow Tracker with the NL 511 app.
We'll see a little bit of a cool down for the island again tomorrow, but then as we head into Thursday, another little bit of a warm up it looks like at this point. Let's take a look at the future tracker to time that out for us. We're looking at snow to start Thursday morning, or at least some light snow or flurries, but that will quickly change over to rain into the afternoon as the next system tracks pretty much the same track that it's been taking for the last little bit, but it does look like that should stay. As some flurries, maybe a brief period of some rain will just edge towards the northern peninsula, but at this point looking like your temperatures should stay below zero. Otherwise between 3 to 7 degrees through the day again for the rest of the island, and some flurries possible for Labrador. Happy Valley Goose Bay going down to about minus 21. Now Friday looks beautiful up across the big land. Cold but beautiful. Temperatures between minus 18 to minus 24, and then back down below zero again through the day on Friday. It'll take a little bit of time to get there. For the east, St. John should have around 0 degrees, but there is still a chance of some showers in the first half of the day. Now, as we get into the weekend, at this point looking a bit unsettled, some sunshine, but also the chance of flurries and temperatures into the minus single digits. For central Newfoundland, same thing, however, looking sunny at this point. Maybe a few flurries for western Newfoundland to start the weekend, but looking nice as we get to the end. And then for eastern Labrador, temperatures will climb as we get into Sunday, and then it looks like some snow possible for western Labrador through the afternoon on Sunday. Wanted to share this photo. Great shot of Balleen. Sunny skies there. Thank you to Gordon for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
What beautiful colors.
Yeah, gorgeous. Thank you, Gordon.
Not much snow, though.
No.
It's interesting for January scenes where things are looking pretty brown instead of pretty white.
Yes, for sure. Now, of course, we're going to be following this issue at St. John's International Airport, where in about an hour from now, we're being told that flights will start being canceled because of a lack of firefighters.
Yeah, we've been covering the issue that has been in the news about the fact that it'll only be planes that have fewer than 19 seats, as well as medevacs and cargo flights that are going to be allowed to land. That's because many of the firefighters have gone off on medical leave, and and there isn't anyone to replace them. So because of regulatory requirements, they need to have firefighters in order to have planes be able to land and take off. So without that key piece of safety equipment, the airport can't function at full capacity. So yeah, if you're planning to fly in or out in the next day or two, you'll definitely want to check with your airlines because we're expecting some cancellations.
Yeah, lots of questions. You can follow it more online on cbc.ca/NL. That's it for us. Good night, everyone.
Good night.